Hi there. In this video, we're going to look at Ripple, and we are going to look at where the bulls and bears are battling around, whether there are any price traps, as well as where there are any whales flickering. These are education content only, not financial advice. We'll start with the daily chart of Ripple, and then we'll go back to the bigger picture and look at it through the Wyckoff lens. Here, what we're going through, okay? As last session we discussed, basically, this is a sideways trend, okay? The lower boundary is about $1.2, and then the upper resistance is about 1.54. Okay, so that's why you see 2 days ago, the price came up, challenged that green key level of 1.54, and then now it is returning back to challenge this uptrend support line that we've drawn in previous sessions. Okay, so technically speaking, this uptrend within the sideways trend, okay, this short-term trend inside the medium-term trend is still going on. But remember, this air hockey metaphor, right? The price tends to bounce between the boundaries. So there are 3 lines in total. The resistance, the top edge, the support, the bottom edge, and then the center line. In this case, it is the 1.35 key level, yellow key level over here. So if the price drops below this yellow dash line to come back to test the 1.35, don't get, how should I say, don't get sad or mad, because that's what happened just before May, okay? And it is still within the sideways trend trading zone. All right. If it doesn't, if the bulls really, defend this line and they are able to do it, okay, the bears aren't able to push the price down. What date are we looking at? All right. So let's borrow this tag over here because the date has passed, and right over here, that's around 29th of June. That's saying, if the price continues to come to this point, okay, finding support from this yellow dash line and trade and gap towards this, you can call that ascending triangle, then either one of the 2 C's would happen. The first C is continuation of this short-term trend, breaking the ceiling of the sideways trend, as well as this 1.54 key level. And then the next level it is going to challenge is likely this 1.71. That's the level, you see that some of these previous actions actually happened. So that's going to be a while, okay? If it is going to keep testing and testing and testing, eventually break out, that's the first C. The second C is change, meaning changing from the short-term trend, dropping below the support and then coming back to test the 1.35 key level. All right, clear? Okay, battle zone, potential trend change, as well as the key price levels. Okay, now let's get to the big picture. Here, through the Wyckoff lens, we talked about Ripple is potentially going through the transition from the distribution cycle into the accumulation cycle. It is still at the early stage of the accumulation. The level that it is now pausing at is way higher than the previous accumulation. So the last accumulation from 2022 all the way to 2024, the top of the range was about 0.86. Okay, this purple key level. All right, 0.86. Currently, it's way above. Not that it hasn't came close. So initially, in early February, it came down to close to 1.05, the right key level. So, I explained many times, during the Wyckoff accumulation cycle, price can go back to previous level or even come down to lower tests. Okay, lower than the previous pausing stage. So don't think the price will not go further down. Okay, there's still possibility for that to happen. While people believe because of all the regulatory clarity and the payment world, okay, using blockchain, adopting blockchain, and in the case of Ripple, of its payment infrastructure development, it should stay at a higher base price. While that may be true, short-term fluctuation can still happen. Okay, so we want to see some confirmation, meaning I want to see an automatic rally. What does it look like? Look at this cycle over here. Okay, initially when it paused, or when it came down, took a pause, and then eventually the panic over is really done. There is a rally setting the trading range top for the accumulation cycle. After 2 rounds of retesting, finally the true volume, true sign of strength came in, and eventually it gets to the next distribution. Currently, we are just at this stage, okay, at this point. So if this rally really climbs higher, then that's another story. Then we can look at it differently. As long as that hasn't happened, I won't declare it has clearly entered accumulation cycle. Also, a second reason why is that I explained also in Bitcoin and Ethereum session that something in Wyckoff method called the upthrust of the distribution, meaning in the distribution cycle, there are at least, I shouldn't use the word at least because they don't always happen, but there are 3 kind of peaks, okay? Three stages of FOMOs that can happen. Okay, the second and the last may not always show up, but it is, technically speaking, possible, okay? The buying climax of Ripple happened right there in January, and then we had the upthrust back in July, both last year, okay? And then, technically speaking, if it consolidates here, like what it did back in March all the way till June in 2025, it can still strike back to test the previous high or even set a higher high. So the possibility is there. While the macro environment, the sentiments aren't helping of this moment, okay? But when the US economic data comes in, the new Fed chair comes in, the situation in the Middle East, the negotiation between China and US, all these sorts of news come out. That mix, that cocktail is going to drive the market movement, maybe pretty violent. So if you go back to my Bitcoin session yesterday, for members, you can access it now. If you're not a channel member yet, you may have to wait for another day. I showed you the cycles of the highs and lows, and Bitcoin hasn't reached that point yet. If it happens late in the later part of this year, that's going to drag the other altcoins down, potentially. Okay? So be cautious. Remember, if you want to access these videos 2 days earlier, like the current channel members, join the channel membership now, and you can find my weekly write-up on Substack and SLS. See you in the next video. Thank you.